WebMD. Processed foods refer to any food that's changed from its natural state. So really, other than picking berries off a vine.
How stupid is that? Any food that's been changed.
This can include food that was simply cut, washed. Never mind. Okay, so you can't wash your berries either.
Right. No, you got to eat with all the dirt on it, right?
So no wonder. Yeah. So now I see why they were like, we need to do some sort of definition.
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. I'm John Barbin. With me is Brad Pilon. And today we're going to talk about the NOVA food classification system. And this is I think it's might be adopted as a standard way to decide what unprocessed versus processed food actually is. I know there's a
If I were to Google unprocessed food right now, would I get a definition? And would it be?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. The whole point is no one really can say what unprocessed or processed is.
Yeah.
So they're trying to come up with some kind of standard thing.
WebMD. Processed foods refer to any food that's changed from its natural state. So really, other than picking berries off a vine.
How stupid is that? Any food that's been changed.
This can include food that was simply cut, washed. Never mind. Okay, so you can't wash your berries either.
Right. No, you got to eat with all the dirt on it, right?
So no wonder. Yeah. So now I see why they were like, we need to do some sort of definition, because simply cut, washed, heated, pasteurized, canned, cooked, frozen, dried, dehydrated, mixed, or packaged would be a processed food. It also can include food that has added preservatives, nutrients, flavors, salts, sugars, or fats.
That's everything you've ever eaten, ever.
Yeah. Now I'll give WebMD some credit because they, what's your name here? Alexandra Benesic, who wrote this article, and Melinda Rattini, because they followed that up with, usually people think processed foods are bad. Well, there are a lot of processed options that are less nutritious. Some processed foods are healthy. So at least they kind of caveat it, but it's basically saying everything is processed to some degree. But
well, yeah, we're going to get into this. And there's research. Somebody sent me an article, and this is where this all came from. And a researcher did 2 different diets, and she purposely tried to put a diet together that met all the nutrient requirements from some other classification system of how to have a nutritious diet out of just ultra processed foods. And she easily crossed the bar for a nutritious diet but using only processed food. Like, again, what does processed food even mean? So if you see someone just say, just eat less processed foods, they don't know what they're talking about. And if they don't get into what, a process, which processed food are they even talking about? If they don't go any further into detail, it's a meaningless term. If you don't get into any detail, it just doesn't mean anything. I mean, you cooking the food is a degree of processing.
Yeah.
So it just can't just be that everything's raw, like Brad said, and maybe you just wash it with some water. Is the water quality? What does it have to be, distilled water?
Well, if the water has been processed, it's tap water. Anyway, so let's get on with this, this NOVA thing. I'm already confused.
So we got 4 groups. None of this is going to make any sense by the end of it.
Perfect. That's great.
But this is put it this way. This is what's being debated. Money's being spent on this, and this may be adopted as the official classification system. So, moving forward at some point, whenever you hear processed food, this might be the thing that's adopted by the United States. Can't all the North American countries that even bother with this stuff, other countries that don't care about this is meaningless. So unprocessed or minimally processed foods, I'm just going to run through some of the things you might expect to see here.
So you said there were multiple groups. Is this group 1?
There's group 1 of 4. And it's just progressively becomes more processed until group 4 is the technical ultra processed.
Ultra processed.
Right.
Nice.
And so we covered a paper in a different podcast where they were comparing unprocessed to ultra. So ultra is a very specific category here. And you'll be surprised.
That one we did a while back, that wasn't just processed, that was ultra processed.
Yeah. And
okay.
And you'll be surprised at what's actually on it. So I was highlighting the things on all the different layers that you might be surprised, and you're like, oh, that's processed, that's ultra processed. You might think that, but I've heard about that being in a healthy diet. So anyways,
right.
Unprocessed or minimally this won't be surprising. Fresh and dried herbs and spices. Dried, okay. It wasn't
Okay.
dried already, a processing you saw.
Right.
Nuts and stuff, like just
Roasted.
just a standard nut. No, not even
Yeah.
roasted, because that's another
Okay.
processing. Fresh or pasteurized vegetables, but not juices. Bulk packaged grains, chilled or
Wait, so
frozen.
pasteurized is
Right.
okay.
Right. I know. Isn't that processing? Well, okay, this is minimally. This is unprocessed
Minimally,
or
okay.
minimally. So right out of the gates, some of these things exist in two categories, which I don't know how that's possible.
Well, we have, I mean, a quick tangent. We have a buddy who owns a dairy and an ice
Right.
cream company, which is awesome to know. And he can go into great lengths over, like, when we say pasteurized, we think of one thing. He's like, it's this like giant spectrum
Right.
of heats,
Mhm.
times, etc. So maybe that's
Right.
why.
And I was just about to say fresh or pasteurized milk, yogurt without sugar. That's in the minimally or unprocessed.
Yeah.
Fresh, chilled, frozen meat. Dried or fresh pasta. So obviously drying it that's okay, I guess, in this category.
Yeah.
Then just like lentils, chickpea, beans, all that, legumes, all that sort of stuff. But I don't exactly. I guess just
Jeez.
like dried and packaged.
And so beans and legumes are weird because they can be dried, they can be canned, they can be canned in sauce. So I guess.
Well, but but they specify canned in another category.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Right. So the thing is, but you might just be thinking, well, I thought beans were good for me, and is that unprocessed or not? Well, it's minimally processed if it's not canned, but if it's canned, it becomes another layer of processing. So the same foods exist in different categories here based on the processing level. So yogurt's in like two categories, milk is in two different categories. Cereals, grains, wheats, oats, and other cereals are in this unprocessed, minimally processed, but then cereals show up again later in the chart in a higher process category.
All right.
So you can't just pick one food item and say, well, that's processed or not. It's
where does ice
processing
come in?
It's ultra. I think
ultra.
It's
so it's
way,
a milk that's frozen with added flavor and sugar. But I wonder where like chocolate milk comes. Anyway, keep going.
Okay, so and here's the actual definitions: unprocessed or natural foods. Again, this is in the NOVA food classification system that may be adopted by most governments that are even paying attention to this stuff, which I maintain the government should butt out. It's none of their business, and none of these societies should even be doing this. But anyways, unprocessed or natural foods are obtained directly from plants or animals and do not undergo any alteration following their removal from nature.
So nothing.
So except maybe washing. But that doesn't even consider pasteurization, which is like killing bacteria, which is a good thing. All right, so then that's
but how would you eat meat?
You raw? I don't know.
Okay.
You don't. I don't know. You couldn't eat an unprocessed natural food diet based on that definition. It's impossible.
You'd be one of those raw food fruitarians.
You couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it.
No.
All right, minimally processed. This is where I think people think unprocessed is.
Okay.
But again, even in this one group, you have unprocessed versus minimally. So minimally processed.
So is minimally group 2?
No, that's still in group 1. All of these, they have like, I know, it's just...
Okay, no, it's good. It's good.
I hope everyone listening at home realize how ridiculous this is. Okay, so minimally processed foods. Foods are so they're foods that are natural foods that have been submitted to cleaning. Oh, so you're now allowed to clean it.
Yeah.
Removal of inedible or unwanted parts. So if you eat the leaf but not the stem, like corn, you don't eat the.
What was their example in the other category then? Did they give one? Like
what, in unprocessed?
Yeah.
Unprocessed natural foods are obtained directly from plants or animals and do not undergo any alteration following their removal from nature.
But did they give us an example of one?
Well, can you rip the husk off a corn? Because in this minimally processed, minimally processed, removal of inedible or unwanted parts. So you'd have to be ripping the husk off the corn.
So if you're cracking an egg, that's still minimally processed.
But you still have to cook corn. Can't eat it raw.
Nope. Same with potatoes and Okay, so minimally, you could crack an egg and you could Rocky Balboa it. We've got one minima.
Maybe. Anyways, maybe. I'm not done the definition.
Okay.
So removal of unwanted parts, fractioning, grinding, drying, fermentation. It's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
pasteurization, cooling, freezing, and this is the best, or other processes that may subtract part of the food, but which do not, this is key, which do not add oils, fats, sugars, salt, or other substances to the original food.
Okay, so we're not adding in, we're just
taking
processing, taking away,
Yeah,
or
you can-
preparing. Yeah. So coffee, well, it's heated, it's ground.
grind it up and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Which makes sense. It's kind of like how do you ever eat wheat if you don't grind it? Like you can't eat raw wheat.
Yeah.
So okay, so then that's
Was heating in that category? Minimally, I saw freezing is cooking.
no, because they don't really get to the point. This is my guess is they're talking about like you haven't prepped it to eat. This is just it's arrived at your counter or your pantry or your fridge.
So maybe like a sashimi, but
I don't think any of this has anything to do with how you prepare it, because that just throws this whole thing out the window. Like what happens if you put some oil in a pan and fry something? Now you've added oil. So you are processing it, right? So they're talking about before you do whatever you're going to do to it.
So if I make a salad and then add olive oil to the salad, I've added oil. Okay, yeah.
This throws out all French cuisine, just throws out all cuisine everywhere, because you add fat, sugar, and salt to everything when you cook it. Nobody just cooks something in air.
So the whole eat like your grandmother, make food at home, and that's out the window, right? The Mediterranean diet, like the just eating with family. That's
how much oil do you add to things in Mediterranean cooking and in
all
Italian and French cooking?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's minimally processed. It's whatever. Anyways, moving on. Group 2. This is a very specific group. Group 2: oils, fats, salt, and sugar. So this is
tasty group. All right.
This is where the food gets good.
Yeah.
Group 2 is also called processed culinary ingredients. Okay, so this is about this isn't really like a food item as much as it is what you do to it to make it taste good, like sauces and things like that.
Adding cinnamon to something is okay, like a culinary ingredient.
Well, this one's we're moving up here in groups here. So processed culinary ingredients. These are products extracted from natural foods or from nature by processes such as pressing, grinding, crushing, pulverizing, refining. They are used in homes and restaurants to season and cook food and thus create varied and delicious dishes and meals of all types, including broths, soups, salads, pies, breads, cakes, sweets, preserves. So this is the art of cooking. Like you extract things from foods to make something else on the other side, right?
Oh, so this isn't the food. This is stuff you add to food.
No, this is extracted from food.
Okay.
So this is where you get to. So the actual examples are things like butter, lard, coconut oil, syrup, like maple syrup is in this group.
Love my maple syrup.
Honey is in this group.
Good stuff too.
Sugars, molasses, cane or beet sugar, and then oils like nuts, fruits, soybean, all the different oils. They're all in this group. Olive oils, like everything. So now we're in group 2 of processing. But group
2 is stuff to add. They're not foods then. They're things you add to foods. Like you don't eat most people don't eat a brick of butter.
So this means there's no such thing as any food you've ever eaten that's purely unprocessed. Because if all you did was take a tomato and put some olive oil on it, you've added group 2 processed
salt
ingredients.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, refined or coarse salt. Even your fancy salts, they're all in here. So starches extracted like corn syrup, like everything's like all the oils, all the butters, and almost anything you would use to cook other than an air fryer with nothing in it is in this category. And we already know, like if you've done any cooking yourself, you know, like you use oils, fats, and salts, and some sugar.
They're really confused, but let's just keep going.
It's the basis for how you make. It's the basis for how you make anything. So these are culinary. I like the fact at least they called it culinary ingredients. Otherwise, they're just throwing out all food ever.
Yes.
Right. Like they'd have to have somewhere to put this stuff. Next, processed foods. Just the actual word processed foods. Right. And the next category is ultra. But anyways, so processed foods are products manufactured by industry with the use of salt, sugar, oil, or other substances added to natural or minimally processed foods. So the group 1 foods. To preserve or make them more palatable. So now we're getting into like intention.
Yes. Okay.
Like not so much what it is, but why are they doing it? And this is weird because things exist on this list that existed on the list just before. They are derived directly from foods and are recognized as versions of the original food. Okay. They are usually consumed as part of or as a side dish in culinary preparations made using natural or minimally processed foods. Most processed foods have 2 or 3 ingredients.
Ketchup? No.
Is anyone still listening right now? This is ridiculous. But anyways, this is group 3. I hope you're on board for how stupid this all is.
I'm trying to like.
Can you even guess what's in this category after what I just said?
I'm like a mixed ingredient salad. Like I don't.
Okay, so we're
mixing things together, but they have to stay within their. This is so dumb. Okay, yeah,
we're in the process category. There's still a level beyond this, ultra. So when you hear anyone saying processed food, it's
everything. Yeah,
I doubt they're even thinking of this scale. But this scale, I'm telling you, might be the one adopted to assume this is what it means. I don't expect anyone to ever follow. This is nonsense. But anyways, this is the one that these various food organizations, governmental organizations, oversight boards, everything are looking into using. So in this category, you've got canned or bottled legumes. So here we go. Now your legumes and beans show up again, but they're canned or bottled now.
Right.
Or canned or bottled vegetables. So like they're preserved in salt or brine.
So this is processed, but not ultra processed.
Yes.
But we're in the processed. So if I did a black bean and quinoa salad, it's the epitome of processed food.
Could be. Vinegars and anything pickled.
Oh.
Since when is a pickle ultra processed or processed? Canned fish such as sardines or tuna.
Okay.
Again, I don't know. I thought it was okay to eat tuna, but maybe not. Salted, dried, smoked, or cured meats or fish. So all of that stuff's a charcuterie board's out.
Yeah.
Coconut fat shows up again. So it was in the oils, fats, and salts group, but it's also in the processed foods group. Okay. Freshly made cheese. All freshly made cheese. Processed. I thought, isn't that part of the Mediterranean thing? Or no, I guess you can't have cheese. Freshly made, unpackaged breads made of wheat, flour, yeast, water, and salt. Processed. I guess so. So no bread. Yeah. How about fermented alcoholic beverages such as beer, alcohol, cider, and wine? Processed.
Okay.
Salted or sugared nuts and seeds. Processed. Tomato extract, pastes, or concentrates. So that's kind of
your pizza sauce, tomato sauce.
The base of every tomato sauce ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all your processed category. Kind of seems small, right? Like it's.
Yeah.
And a lot of that you'd be like, really? That's.
I would almost like if you were just to ask me about, those are the minimally processed ones. Like that sounds minimally processed to me. But okay, right. So let's hit.
Minimally processed is something else entirely.
Okay, so category 4 is
ultra
processed. All right.
And these categories almost seem like you asked a 10-year-old what they would think, and they would come up with these.
No,
like this in between one sounds like a scientist tried to generate it because they have no idea what to call processed, and then ultra, it sounds like you just kind of it's obvious everything that's ultra. So the ultra processed list is way bigger. These are foods. These are industrial formulations made entirely or mostly from substances extracted from foods. Example: oils, fats, sugar, starch, and proteins derived from food constituents, hydrogenated fats and modified starches, stuff like that, or synthesized in laboratories from food substrates or other organic sources, flavor enhancers, colors, food additives, that sort of stuff. Manufacturing techniques include extrusion, molding, the pre-processing by frying. Okay. So in this category, this is where your ice creams and frozen desserts are.
So wait, if you pre-processing by frying, to check if you were to flash, when you sear either side of a steak before you put it on the grill, does that make my steak ultra processed?
Well, you did it, but it didn't arrive to you.
It didn't arrive that way.
Again, this is like I'm assuming they mean you bought it this way or it arrived to you this way,
right?
Because obviously, if you cook anything, almost everything you do puts it in one of these processed or ultra processed categories.
Right. Okay.
So it's like It's so dumb because it doesn't even consider, well, what do you do to it at home? As if people buy food, open it, and eat it. Like they don't do anything with it when they get home. They don't cook it themselves. All right. So in the ultra processed category, you have infant formulas. So shouldn't give that to a baby. Meal replacement shakes. So all of your supplements, ultra processed, which is obvious. Like the meal replacement, it's just a powder.
Yeah.
Distilled alcoholic beverages, whiskey, gin, rum, vodka, all the distilled ones are the most pure, yet they're calling it ultra processed.
But beer and wine are less processed, eh?
Yeah, they're in the one below. So they're in the processed category, but the distilled ones that are the most pure are in the ultra processed.
So I wonder under that, if my tap water processed, but if my tap water comes in, goes through an ultraviolet filter, is it now ultra processed water?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so from that designation, it doesn't necessarily mean it makes it worse.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
But people think ultra processed just must mean worse.
Oh, so this is okay. So they're literally classifying things based on their level of processing, which is obvious from the name, but not necessarily their level of healthiness, which is the implied claim.
Right. The implication is as you go up in these groups, it just gets worse and worse for you. But
that's not actually what they're saying. They're basically
they're going around in a circle here almost a little bit because they're so far down this definition rabbit hole of what is this and what do you even call this and how do you get it into this category? You end up putting things like infant formula, meal replacement shakes that are probably macronutrient wise very good, like well put together products, but they are technically highly processed.
So it looks like what we're doing is taking majors in food chemistry and asking them to define levels of food processing, and they almost like from an engineering point of view was like, yeah, this is different levels of processing, handed that off to a bunch of like nutrition majors, and they're like, there, see, this is good to bad, right like
right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Awesome.
I mean,
that's
now there's
great.
obviously the things you expect to be in here, like cakes, pastries, breakfast cereals, bars, stuff like that, like granola bars, like all of that's in here. Dairy drinks, just dairy drinks, including chocolate milk. But milk was in a category earlier, so it's just which dairy drink are you talking about? Canned, packaged, dehydrated, and other instant soups. So like your ramen noodles, all that sort of stuff. That's in here. Obviously soft drinks and carbonated beverage, all that sort of stuff. Chocolates, candies, confectionaries. Like that's all the stuff you think of when you think of this category. And then fatty, sweet, savory, or salty packaged snack. Essentially almost everything you can buy at the convenience store and a gas station is what people think of. And that's what's in here, obviously.
It's almost like they want to just say the more shelf stable it is, the worse it is for you, with some exceptions, like ice cream is not shelf stable. Okay, so I have one for you. I just did a quick Google search on this, and this is one of the first things that came up in Google. I'm going to read it to you. A healthy diet should favor foods belonging to the first category. That is unprocessed or minimally processed foods. That's you and I kind of like, that's nothing. As for processed foods, they should be limited and ultra processed foods avoided. The best way to do this, cook more.
Yeah, so process it yourself. With all of this stuff they just said don't do.
Yeah. So by cooking it, you're automatically moving it into that.
Well, okay, so to be fair, like some of this stuff in the ultra processed, I guess their point is when you buy it this way, you're just accepting what's in it. Like if it's got a higher fat content than you'd prefer, or if it's got a higher sugar content, then you might be able to prepare yourself. Well, if you're going to eat what they gave you, you're just signing up for whatever's on their label. Whereas if you bought a less processed version of it, then cooked it yourself, perhaps you could finish cooking it in a way where you don't add as much oil or you don't add as much sugar, but you still like it. So I get it. Again, look at how ridiculous this conversation is right now.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out if I go out and buy an ice cream maker right now and make the ice cream at home, what category am I in? Cookies, if I make the cookie at home.
Well, how about this? What if you recreate it exactly at home? You've just recreated an entire ultra process. Like the assumption here is you don't change any of this stuff.
Well, do you know when you make your own? I don't know if you've done this, but basically your own high protein granola bars at home. but that would basically just be an energy bar. So that would be ultra processed. So,
well, right. I don't know. I guess they're trying to, if you want to take a really high level look at this, I assume they're trying to steer people away from buying as many prepackaged, like you're in the frozen food aisle, all the prepackaged like pizzas and chicken nuggets and all of that stuff, like that's all in here, and like the prepackaged boxed burgers and all those things. So I guess they would say go to your butcher counter and get like fresh meat versus the prepackaged one, and maybe there's more stuff going on in the prepackaged
see, I
one.
get what they're trying to do, right? They'd rather you feed your kids chicken than chicken tenders. But
what do you do to the chick? What do you do? Do you deep fry it yourself? What do you do to it? Do you put barbecue sauce on it afterwards for them? Like what are you going to do with it? I get it. These there is a lot of additives in some of these to keep them shelf stable. I get all that stuff. But like we said, you can there was research showing you could make just as nutritious of a diet with an ultra processed food menu choice, like off of this category, ultra processed. So it's not obvious. It's not, I mean, I think people just assume it's one or two things. It's like, you're just going to eat a bowl of M&Ms. Like, well, yeah, no, but nobody's going to do that. It's going to be part of what you eat, but it's not going to be all of what you eat.
Yeah. I mean, you might do a bowl of M&Ms. You're not doing it for breakfast, lunch, dinner.
No.
Like fried. You can't do it.
Right. So, I mean, I guess what we're trying to get, the point we're trying to get across here is when you hear anyone say processed foods, you have a thought in your mind of what that means. But
they're saying bad food. That's what they're trying to say, right? Foods that are bad for you, right? And that's what they mean by processed. They don't necessarily mean the degree of processing, which is sort of what the NOVA category is trying to explain. So ultra processed foods are big food, cereal box, bad for you. That's what people think of. I don't even know where to go with this. This is like, and then that's
the point. The point is, there's so many different foods in all the different categories. Some of these foods exist in multiple categories. It disregards what you might do to the food yourself.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's kind of a meaningless designation. It's much simpler to say, try to eat whole foods if you can.
Yeah. Or make your own meals, and then
make your own meals. I mean, if you want to stay away from packaged food, fine, stay away from packaged food. But does any of this have any direct effect on your actual metabolism? Like, is it doing anything to you? We just reviewed a paper where they compared ultra processed food to unprocessed food, and nothing changed as far as insulin resistance. Cholesterol actually improved in both groups. So it's like, what's it actually doing? What are you really? If you're not tracking what this is doing to you, you could just be getting neurotic, orthorexic, like bent out of shape for no good reason.
Yeah.
I'm not saying just eat everything out of the frozen food aisle.
Just eat like a responsible adult, and then every once in a while fast. Right? Like,
do whatever you want, but if you're gonna spend any time fiddling with what you eat and you think you're improving your health by cutting out certain foods, but you have no objective way to measure it, you could just be causing yourself a lot of stress for no true benefit, or at least a benefit. Better that you at least measure it and kind of know your efforts paying off. Maybe that versus causing a lot of stress and just hoping it's doing something.
Like a minimally processed, where would chocolate fit in? Like a super organic dark chocolate? It would still be ultra processed.
No, I think where did chocolate end up here? Chocolate's in your ultra processed category.
Yeah.
Chocolates, candies, and confectionery.
But it's funny then, because the funny thing is, you and I talked about in a previous podcast, is the one possible downfall of dark chocolate is the heavy metals in it, which has nothing to do with its processing.
No, it's just in it. And you'd hope they'd be able to process that out.
In fact, if you were to eat the raw cacao seeds, it would still be there. Yeah, you're one off. In fact, funny, because right now they're petitioning the chocolate industry to try to fix this issue of heavy metals in chocolate. And one of the possible solutions is, to process it out.
More processing. Yeah. Just to make it healthier.
Yeah.
So I guess, and it doesn't matter what's on these lists. People are going to eat what they want to eat anyways, and they're going to pick and choose what they'll accept from each category.
Yeah.
So if you just want to eat chocolate and you've convinced yourself that dark chocolate's just part of your diet and it's okay, you're not going to care that it's on the ultra processed. You're just going to eat it anyways.
Yeah.
And if
then you're going to feel bad about it instead of like, and that's the main, like in terms of research in a vacuum and life in a vacuum is I would love to do a trial where you get 2 group subjects and one group you just make feel absolutely miserable at the food they're eating. And the other group you tell them about how healthy the food they're eating is, same food, and just see what the results would be. Because it's too stressful.
Yeah. So I think this is just going to lead to more obsessive compulsive and stress about eating versus helping anybody with anything.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what they're doing. That's
money well spent.
That's the Nova Food classification system. And that's how confusing and nonsensical it is. And I don't know, just
good luck.
Yeah. Good luck if you're going to follow anything to do with that.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah, me too.
So for Brad Pilon, I'm John Barber, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.